Tokia yanaleo, mian kekansan, miwule pana e sona pitoki pona. Hey, I'm Greg Dan 3, and today I'm going to be giving another Toki Pona lesson. This one is going to be on the next most important kind of sentence in Toki Pona, sentences involving li, which allow you to describe anything, essentially, as the subject. So for starters, let's go over all the words that are going to be in this particular lesson. Of course, there is the word li itself, which is drawn with this little right arrowhead, and is spelled L-I. It has no specific meaning in Toki Pona. Instead, its purpose is to mark where a subject ends and a verb begins. Now, you'll recall that during the previous lesson, li was not present in any of the sentences, and that was because, for me and Sina in particular, and exclusively, you don't use li in those sentences. But, as we'll quickly learn, those sentences still function the same way as though li were there. So, that's the first word. Let's go over a couple more. Next, we have kasi, drawn as a little sprout with two leaves, and that's K-A-S-I. Kasi means any kind of plant. It can refer to trees, to grass, to moss, literally any kind of plant. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a green plant or, in fact, a plant in the traditional sense. In the past, kasi could also refer to fungus and mushrooms, and some speakers still use it this way. Let's clear those. We've got a couple more. We've got a lot more, actually. Next, we have kiwen, drawn with this diamond shape. That's K-I-W-E-N. And kiwen refers to rock, hard things, metals, very durable objects, anything that would stand up to being pushed against, right? So you could refer to an actual boulder as a kiwen, just as well as you could refer to a wall as kiwen. Next, we have ko, that is drawn with this blobby shape. Now, the exact interpretation of ko is not perfect. This is how I personally draw it, because, frankly, I'm not the best at drawing it, but you could also draw it a bit more like that. All of these are things which you could be interpreted as ko, so long as they don't look like other Sicilian pona. And for reference, that is spelled K-O. Ko refers to a small collection of different things. It refers to slimy, gooey, and sticky things, and it refers to things which are dusty, fallen apart into little pieces. Both of these things are ko. Let's do a couple more. So next, we have telo. Telo is drawn with these two horizontal curved line shapes, T-E-L-O. And telo refers to all kinds of liquid. Most commonly, it refers to water, but it can just as well refer to water as it can to, say, gasoline, magma, literally anything that is a liquid. Next, we have kulupu, drawn with these three small circles in a group. That's K-U-L-U-P-U. Kulupu refers to all kinds of different groups. That can be groups of objects in a collection. It can be a library full of books, a kulupu of books. It can be a community of people, as in both a neighborhood and a nation, just as well. Any kind of group. Next, we have Yaki. And I tend to draw it with a random scribble. Yaki is a fun one, and that's spelled J-A-K-I. It's drawn with a scribble because of its meaning. Its meaning is something that is gross, disgusting, trash. It can also refer to things which are dirtied. Yaki is simply a scribble. And it can be any kind of scribble. Again, something that there's a lot of leeway on drawing. Then we have wawa. Wawa is drawn with a person's head and their arms raised over their head like this. And it's spelled W-A-W-A. Wawa refers to strength, power, and confidence, both the feelings and the actions, the ability to perform something that requires a lot of effort, right? And it refers to electricity, energy, things that have a sort of power to commit actions, right? Let's clear those. Next, we have Sui. S-U-W-I. And for those of you who have been on the internet long enough, you've probably recognized this as being very similar to a text emote or an emoticon of basically the same shape, drawn with the two little caret symbols and a period in the middle of them. You can also imagine it as like a cat winking at you, or however you would choose to interpret it. But it's a little sort of happy face. And Sui refers to cute, sweet, soft, fluffy. Anything that is in the category of cuteness and sweetness. It can refer to something being sweet, as in the property of a personality, and it can also refer to a food being sweet, as in being sugary to the taste. Next, we have Nasa. N-A-S-A, which is drawn with this spiral shape. Now, don't worry about the exact direction of the spiral shape. It can be recognized whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise. And it also doesn't matter how many lines are in it, so long as it looks reasonably like a spiral. So you could do just that. And that could totally be NASA. NASA refers to weird, strange, odd. But, very important note, while NASA does refer to these things, it doesn't have a negative connotation like weird or strange might in English. If something is referred to as NASA, it could simply be a Nasa Pona, a good kind of weird, right? And there's nothing stopping it from being that way. Weird totally can be good. All right, 2 more. Next, we have 3 lines here and then a dot, and that is Selly. S-E-L-I. Selly is drawn with these 3 lines and a dot as a sort of abstract representation of fire. And you could also imagine it maybe as the emission of lines of heat. Selly refers to things which are hot. And it doesn't just refer to fire or temperature, it can refer to any kind of thing which is hot. Now, you'll recall earlier that I noted magma is a kind of telo. Well, magma, being really heated rock, is also a kind of selly. You might refer to it as telo selly. And then lastly, we have lete. L-E-T-E. And lete, though not Selly's opposite, and we'll get to that, it is Selly's counterpart. It refers to cold things, which is just as well ice as it is the air being cold around you. Lete is drawn with this abstract representation of a snowflake, which is just 3 intersecting lines at the center. Those are all the words we're going to be covering for this lesson. The entire remainder of the lesson is going to be examples after I get through some grammar. So, I introduced the idea of the word li, but I have not explained exactly how it's used in a sentence, just that it goes between the subject and the verb. So let's see kind of what that looks like in a general sense. First, we have our brackets to indicate something which can be any particular word. We have a subject of some kind, li, and then we have a predicate of some kind. Now this is, of course, very general, but let's compare it to our me and sina sentences from before. So let's say we have me and then Pona. And I'm sure that sentence will be familiar. So me, Pona. As I noted at the start of this lesson, it's like having an implicit li here in the middle. It's not actually there, but it is exactly the same as having one there, with the caveat that you can never put one between me and the predicate that applies to me. And the same goes for Sina. But otherwise, all Toki Pona sentences, at least for the purpose of this lesson, will look something like this. Subject, li, this symbol, predicate. Let's clear that. And let's try, for example, Yan, li, Pona. So both of these are words that we saw in the previous lesson. Yan, of course, means person. Li is our new word that separates the subject from the predicate. And finally, Pona tells us that something is good or simple in a way that the simplicity is good. So let's go on to the remainder of the examples with context for this lesson. So let's say that you and a friend are looking through old photos, and your friend points to one of a particularly sharply dressed person leaning against a wall. You grab the photo from their hand and you say, Yan, li, me. The person is me. In this context, the phrase Yan, li, me, of course, refers to the person in the photo. And you don't have to specify any more clearly than that, even though there are ways to do so, because, again, in context, we have all that information. We know that you're holding the photo, pointing at them, and saying, hey, this person is me. Let's go on to another one. Let's say you have a group of friends all at the side of a pool, and all of them are staring into the water, unsure if they're ready quite yet to brave it. Suddenly, one friend comes running from behind, yells cannonball, and falls into the pool loudly as he can, splashing everybody else in the process. He finally comes up in the water, and like everybody else who's just been soaked, he says, Telo li lete. The water is cold. The water is so cold. And I'm sure plenty of people here have experienced that in their lives, whether for yourself or somebody else splashing you. Jumping into a pool that is way too cold is quite an experience. All right, for this one, I'm going to go ahead and draw the sentence ahead of time so you have it as a reference, and I'll speak it aloud. So in this case, we have Kiwen li ko. That is Kiwen li ko. So let's say you've been walking along a forest trail on a long hike. As you're walking, you brush your hand along a rock, and when you pull your hand away, you find it covered in sticky tree sap, and you remark, Kiwen li ko. This rock is sticky, ew. And it's also worth mentioning here that there's more than one way to come at this context. You could, for example, substitute the description of Kiwen as ko with something else. You could also say Kiwen li Yaki. And this could express essentially the same sentiment. This rock is sticky, it's gross and weird, I don't like it, right? Both of these get at the same idea in this context. And that's actually something that's very, very important. In Toki Pona, there's more than one way to describe a situation. All of these words not only have multiple definitions in the sense of there's many things they could describe, but they also have overlapping definitions and meanings. Not in a way that makes them synonyms, but in a way that makes them differently useful at different times. If you wanted to express the rock is just sticky in this situation, you would totally just use Kiwen li ko. And if that was the thing that bugged you, then fair enough. But if you were grossed out by that stickiness, you would go all the way to kiwenli yaki. That wasn't just sticky, it was nasty, right? Let's go on to another example. Kasi li suli. Kasi li suli. So let's say you're on an expedition out to see the tallest tree in the world. You've walked for hours and hours, you're sweating heavily under the sun, you hike over the peak of one more hill, and you spot the tree on the horizon. You're so shocked to finally see it, you shout, Kasi li suli! This tree is so big, it's huge. And you can imagine, of course, the excitement of somebody who has gone so far out of their way to see something incredible like the tallest tree in the world. Absolutely, they would be shocked and excited. Kasi li suli. This tree is so big. Now, let's pause here to examine what this sentence could mean in other contexts. So, of course, we provided this one context in which we're talking about a specific, very large tree. And yeah, if you were standing there next to it and you refer to Kasi li suli, everybody there knows you're going to mean the tallest tree in the world. But more generally, recall that kasi can refer to any kind of plant. What if you were standing in a very large flat field covered in grass, and there's not another thing to see except for yourself standing in the middle of that field and all the grass? Well, in that case, the kasi li suli, the statement kasi li suli, is still true. But in this case, you're no longer referring to an individual plant, you're now kind of referring to the collective. There's so much land covered in grass. The plants are huge, but now they're huge in a way that makes them big and flat, as opposed to tall, way, way tall in height. Let's continue on to another one. This one is going to be a little silly. Wawa li nasa. Now, out of context, you might interpret this something like, strength is weird, right? Like, on its own, it doesn't make a ton of sense. It's not really wrong to say, but it needs to live in context for you to have a reasonable interpretation of what it might actually mean. So let's say that you were on an epic quest in a fantasy world. You stop at a wizard's tower, climb it all the way to the top, and at the top you find the wizard deep in thought and research. He doesn't want you to stay, and so in order to make you leave as quickly as possible, he teaches you a brand new spell to help you on your journey. And that spell is spoon form. You can turn yourself into a spoon for a little bit, and that's all it does. Now, you don't tell this to the wizard. He's clearly already upset, but you think to yourself, Wawa li nasa. Magic is weird. Magic is really weird. Like I said, that sentence doesn't work in the sense of you could read it out of context and have an idea of what it means. But once you've established something going on, you certainly have a good idea, right? Let's go on to another one. Moku li sui. Moku li sui. Let's say you've been visiting your grandmother's house, and while you're there, she offers you piles and piles of different sweets. Now, you try each and every one, enjoying the smell and taste of your grandmother's fantastic cooking, but your favorite was her apple pie. Thinking about it again, you think to yourself, moku li sui. That food was so sweet. Now, of course, this statement can refer to any particular kind of food, and for that matter, it doesn't have to refer to sweetness in the food sense either. It can just as well refer to sweetness in the cute sense. You could have some very artistic appearance of some food and say, oh yeah, this food, it's really cute. Like say you had a very cutely decorated cake. But, of course, there is the assumption of reasonability about this as well. So while context can tell you, oh yeah, this food is cute, reasonability, as in the idea that if I look at this sentence, what's it most likely to mean? That would tell you, yeah, this food is sweet. We're referring to a sweet kind of food. So moving on. Ko, li, seli. Ko, li, seli. Let's say, after enjoying your grandmother's cooking, you and your family head out to the beach to enjoy the sun, the sand, and the waves. And the sun is beaming super brightly overhead, heating everything around you. And as you feel the wind whipping past your face, you take your first step out on the beach. And it burns. Whew, the sand is way too hot. Ko, li, seli. The sand is way too hot. Now, this one's something interesting because as I noted before, ko refers just as well to things that are dusty as well as things that are like particulate and things that are gooey and sticky. While maybe to an observer those concepts are not so related, you can imagine them still being easy to distinguish by context, right? And certainly in this case that is true. If you were walking out onto the beach and you said ko li seli, somebody's probably not going to think you're talking about, I don't know, the seaweed in the ocean. You're not there yet. You just put your foot down on the sand and it burned and you said, ko li seli. The sand is too hot. Now let's do this one. Moku, li, yaki. Moku, li, yaki. So let's say you've just gotten home from your long vacation. Unwinding was a fantastic time, but being back home means being back to the grind. You got to do a lot of work, and it's coming at you right now. So while you're settling back in, you open up your fridge, and to your dismay, you discover your food's gone bad. Moku li yaki. That's so unfortunate. I guess you were gone for a long time. Moku li yaki. Now, these contexts are important for this situation because moku li yaki, of course, when I'm looking into the fridge and seeing that my food's gone bad, I think to myself, yeah, this food is nasty. It's gone bad. But you could just as well refer to moku li yaki when talking about food that you're eating, that you're actively eating. Somebody's made a meal and it's honestly not very good. You could just as well say moku li yaki in that case as well. All right, so we're going to do a handful of English to Toki Pona translations, and then we're going to do a quick little roundup, a summary of the lesson, and we're done. So let's do English to Toki Pona. Let's say we have the sentence, the sand is sludgy. That's a very artistic word right there, sludgy. It brings on an image to mind right away. The sand is sludgy. Well, we just went over an example a bit ago where we know the word sand can be referred to with ko, right? Now, bear in mind that while that's not the only way you could refer to sand, it is one way and it is a pretty effective way. Ko. So let's write that in. Ko. Now, is, we're describing the sand, so that's going to be li, and then this word sludgy. Now, this is an interesting one because, again, there's a couple interpretations. We could mean sludgy in the sense of it being goopy, as though you were dealing with more wet sand, right? You could mean sludgy in the sense of it being actually slimy to the touch, as though, I don't know, there were sea foam in it. On one hand, we could totally say ko li ko, and that would be valid. We can write that down. But ko li ko isn't very helpful, right? It seems like circular And in a sense, it is. You could totally be using these two words in different senses, but this is an instance where you might instead want to say ko li Yaki. This sand is gross, gooey, not pleasant to touch. So that's an important thing to think about when you're translating from English to Toki Pona. Don't just take these statements literally, think more deeply about what is going on under the hood and try it out. And importantly, while it's never wrong to reuse a word, it can be a little bit more difficult to figure out what you mean, even in the right context. Let's clear that and do another one. Let's say the community is friendly. The community is friendly. Well, we talked before about how the word kulupu can refer to all kinds of groups. Community is no exception. So let's go ahead and write that in. A community, that's kulupu, those three circles in a group. Now, friendly, that's an interesting one. There's not a specific word for friend in Toki Pona, but you could still put that concept together. But being friendly is different from being a friend, right? Being friendly is like a personality trait. So, we can simplify this a little further. Friendly, let's go ahead and write in our li here. Friendly can be referred to with Pona. Not all kinds of good are just the word good, right? As we covered in the first lesson, Pona can be healthy, and it can be well, and here we're seeing that Pona can also be friendly. Positivity of all different kinds is Pona. So the community is friendly would be translated something like kulupu li Pona. And for my last part of the lesson, I would like to give a quick rundown of the idea of a content word versus a particle. And in all likelihood, both of these terms will be new to you. So you might have noticed that while I did say any word could be in the subject, I've been treating the word li differently from all the others, and for its definition, I didn't really give anything, I just gave rules. And that is the distinction between what's called a content word and a particle. So let's write that down. Content word, and we'll fill this in a moment. And then we have over here, particle. We've only seen one so far, and that is li. Particles are marked by their lack of meaning. They don't have a specific meaning unto themselves. Instead, they exclusively refer to some sort of structural rule, something that affects the grammar without changing the meaning of the sentence on its own. The only thing that can truly change the meaning of the sentence are the words around it. So, li is used for indicating where the subject ends and the verb begins, or you could think of it as just marking where the verb is, right? That's the usual way to think of it, that li only marks where the verb is, and it's not a content word, so you couldn't have li side by side. But content words do have meaning, and they include things like kulupu, mi, sina, yan, Pona. Every other word we've discussed so far is a kind of content word, a word that has a specific meaning. And that's all I had for today. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope you learned something cool.